Okay, so here's a look at the rear back view of Tiger. There's a lot of talk about his back problems recently, his knee problems and all sorts over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, but one thing we all know is that he hasn't played golf to the level he did back in sort of 2000 to 2002. Yes, you could say the competition's stronger, but if you look at the driving stats and if you look at the accuracy he had off the tee, I think the last time he played and drove the ball anything like his best was probably 2009, a season where he won or finished second in half of the events, half of the 16 events he played that season. So if we look at this, I think the only real true view to look at the pelvis and the hips is actually from behind, but from a raised camera point, sort of, so it's facing sort of directly square at the hips. The spine's going to be a bit tilted. Obviously, even the lower spine's going to be tilted a bit. So the camera's facing directly at the lower lumbar spine here, and you'll see that there isn't really. There's certainly this is something which isn't really talked about too much. There's this left pelvic tilt where you've actually got a downward tilting of the pelvis, which is, I think, an essential requirement to get a good pelvic hip action. So we can see how if we just put a little bit of a mark here just on the edge of the belt, we'll definitely see a slight downward dip of that sort of left hip as you start the downswing, and the body kind of compresses into that sort of into the ground a little bit. But interestingly enough, we'll see that when we view it from this line, even at sort of halfway down, we still have this look of the sort of pelvis being a little bit sort of left tilted. You can definitely see the line here is a little bit more sort of tilted downwards. This is something which is not really ever talked about. Everyone talks about sort of the left hip rising and so forth. And now as we see the pelvis start to rise, yes, we do start to, because the left leg is starting to straighten a little bit, we'll see a little bit of the sort of right tilting to the right. But really, I mean, how much, let's just put this in a different color, how much do we see compared to address? Well, this line here is probably approximately about sort of 3 degrees, and we had about a 1 degree tilt to the right at address. So you could say that it's moved a couple of degrees, but it really is not very much. So there's business about the pelvis must be tilted sort of 10-15 degrees to the right, so right hip being lower, posting up on the left leg. It's just I don't know, it's just nonsense really. It's biomechanical nonsense. People create these models, they don't really know what they're looking at, and they think it all looks nice and neat and tidy. Conversely, if we look at it from a slightly lower view, this is kind of, you look at the video on the right here, this is actually a video of him back in 2002 when he was probably, with driving wise, pretty close to his peak in terms of distance and accuracy. We'll see a very, very different leg action here. We see the usual sort of loading into the right side, which he's kind of probably pretty much done most of his career, apart from maybe during the Foley era. But one thing that's interesting to note here is that just how much, and I think this is the big key for him getting back to somewhere near his best, because he's so much more sliding onto the left side here. But if we have a look at where this left hip joint moves as he comes through, it doesn't yet, it drives up a lot into impact, and he really explodes off the ground to get that rotational speed, but there's not really a lot of forward sliding movement of that left hip joint towards the target. You can just see here how much more at impact, how much more centered he is. And have a look here, if we just have a look at the same sort of left hip joint here on the left, we'll see that it's so much more over the left foot, what biomechanists may deem as a nice kind of neat sort of tidy position to be in, sort of nicely kind of forward onto the left side, weight on the left side, all that stuff. But we'll see how Tiger really has still got a lot of pressure still done on the ball of that back foot here. You can see the foot's in a very different position. It's kind of really driving into the ground, pushing off to try and maintain the rotational speed of those hips. I mean, there's absolutely no holding back here through the ball. He is just exploding off the ground, giving it everything he's got. So he had great distance, and with it great accuracy, because he could maintain the rotational speed through the ball. You can see even just how much he clears and rotates through the ball there. Nowadays, the whole with the sort of kinetic link, it's all about decelerating and trying to slow down to make the arm speed up through impact, and that just I don't think that you just don't see that going on with the greats when they're in their absolute prime. I think a lot of these great instinctive moves are being, I think, coached and taught out of the game because maybe they don't look neat and tidy on a camera. I don't know, but anyway, some interesting stuff there.